everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Game Time with Zach and Jameer. My name is Jameer Wilson, and I'm co-hosted by Zach Wright. Today, the name of the game is Best of the Best, where we will discuss our current top 10 players, why they stand in the positions they do in our eyes. We also make predictions on who we believe can make their way into this list from the outside and move up and down going forward. So, first, before we start, how's it going, Zach? How you been, man?
I've been all right. Just been really busy with work lately. On a positive note, though, I got a grad school interview at Loyola University in Maryland, so that's exciting. Looking forward to that. Got to get a suit and all that, so it's gonna be fun.
That's
How about
awesome.
you? What's going on with you?
On a positive note for me, today is actually my 2-year anniversary.
Oh, ain't that sweet?
I know. My old lady. Shout out to Kiana. And also, I've also been busy with work, but I'm also looking forward to applying and possibly interviewing with the University of Bloomsburg. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah. Let's get into it. So who's in your top 10?
Okay. So in my top 10, do you think it would be better if I started from the top and worked my way to the bottom, or work my way opposite?
Do what you feel is best, bro.
I guess we can start from the top and work our way down. The number one player in my book is LeBron James. Number 2, Kevin Durant. Number 3, Kawhi Leonard. Shout out to my favorite player. Number 4, Steph Curry. Number 5, Anthony Davis. Number 6, James Harden. Number 7, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Number 8, Luka Doncic. Number 9, Nikola Jokic. And rounding it out at the top 10 for me is Joel Embiid. Shout out to my Sixers. Who is in your top 10?
All right. So I similarly have LeBron 1 and Kevin Durant 2. And now I have Steph Curry at 3, Kawhi 4, Harden 5, Davis 6, Giannis at 7, Luka at 8, Jokic at 9, and then I also have Embiid as number 10.
Okay. And why do you have your top 10 ordered this way?
I mean, when I think about who's the best players, I kind of think about who impacts the game the most while they're out there. So I just feel like these are the 10 most impactful players of recent years. Obviously with this season, things are, looking different. And that's just in general, though. Like Embiid's looking like, he's a top 5 player in the league right now this season. So, I just try to think of it in a more so in a general way, especially with this year just being so, up and down and different with COVID and no fans and all that. It kind of changes things a lot. So, yeah, I just kind of thought of it as like, who are the 10 most impactful players? Obviously took into account their skill level and abilities as well. But, yeah, I just feel like, like the impact is more important than, say, who's the best offensive and defensive player. Because, I think Kevin Durant's the best scorer in the league, but that doesn't make him the best player. So, that's kind of how I was going about it in that sense. And how about you, Jimmy? What influenced your decisions in your top 10?
I would agree with overall impact. I think the eyeball test is something I really look at. Also, in terms of not just looking at who's the best scorer, who's the best offensive player, who's the best defensive player. I kind of look at the overall package and try to say, well, for example, like LeBron James is declared number 1 in my book. He impacts the floor, the teammates he has around him. And I also look at situations and how they handle different situations.
Mm-hmm.
You put LeBron James on any team, he has the best impact on any team he would step on. If he were to step on the floor anywhere, if they're a lottery team, they become a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
If he steps on a team that just makes it to the playoffs every year, they become a championship contender. If you step on a championship contender, they might win it all if
Mhm.
he steps on the floor with that team. And then going on down, I think just if you put them on any other team, just how much they change things and how they make other players play on both ends of the floor. Like how do the opponents have to adjust to them? How do they have to watch them? Like for example, with Steph Curry, you can't keep your eyes off of him because you leave him open in any respect, you might as well start walking back because there's 3 points on the board. Uh,
Exactly.
got LeBron James, uh, as well as guys like Luka Doncic and James Harden as playmakers who can distribute the basketball and facilitate and make other players great, not just good. Um, and you have guys like Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, and Joel Embiid in this top 10 who make other players better on defense just because of how well they play defense. And like with Kawhi Leonard, he takes on one of the top two assignments every night pretty much and does a spectacular job, comes up with steals, comes up with clutch defensive plays, and so on. So just the overall package, look at the situations they've been in and things like that. So yeah,
I think you said that very well.
I appreciate that, sir.
Yeah, bro.
Now, as we all know, things are subject to change. Which of these players are most likely to move up or down?
When I think of who's most likely to move up, the name that comes to mind for me is Joel Embiid. He's his biggest issue for like the last few years. People just felt like he wasn't, bringing the intensity consistently enough. And like, he's kind of playing lackadaisical in the eyes of some. Just wasn't, there wasn't that fire was missing to a degree. But at least with this season, he's definitely, been locked in the entire time. And it's showing because he is a front runner in the MVP race. And this MVP race is one of the tightest ones we've seen in years. So it's very good. It's going to be very exciting to see how it turns out. But, he's maintained a level of excellence that he hasn't had before throughout this season. And he's hitting threes at a very efficient clip this season. He's hitting 40% of his threes now. He's making well over about 55% of his shots, if I'm correct. Like Embiid's been playing very well, locked in, playing amazing defense as always, as you mentioned, just a defensive force. And if he maintains this level of intensity, I feel like he can definitely move up the list and usurp some of the players above him. Just because, especially with some players are going to be getting older. Embiid has a very high ceiling. He should be able to average 30 and 13 one season. Like he definitely has that ability in him, especially if that shot remains consistent and he keeps keeps locking down the paint. In his post, he's the best, post player in the league this season, or in the last few years, I'd say he's been the best post player. So yeah, I just feel like Embiid's the one who has the biggest shot of moving up in this list for me. And then if you want to talk about moving down, I think the most likely suspect would be Harden. And I feel like it has more so to do with his move to Brooklyn rather than Harden, getting worse or players getting better than Harden, simply because Harden's no longer the number one option. Those opportunities to get 40 a night is just, that's not going to happen anymore with Kevin Durant being deemed, the closer and the go-to guy. And then that's not even mentioning the fact that Kyrie Irving is also there needing shots. So Harden's going to have to, he's changed his game and he's got to continue to play in a more so playmaker capacity rather than being like the spearhead of the attack or the main scoring option. Like he's right now, he's, averaging a nice double-double, a 20 and 10 double-double, which is amazing. And he's going to have to keep playing with that same level of, that same mentality of playmaking rather than going for 40 because he's no longer, the end all and be all of the offense. He has other playmakers and other people who arguably can score better than him now. So I just feel like being in that sidekick, quote unquote sidekick role will cause him to possibly move down in the eyes of many. But I feel like Harden will still be a very impactful player just in a new capacity, which I think will be fun to watch. And how about you, Jameer? Who's likely to move up and down for you?
I want to quickly touch on your point about James Harden. I think that just because he's become a facilitator. I think that he, just based on eye test for me, is still clearly top 10. I think his position. I think he's actually further solidifying his position. To be honest, I think uh, most players going into new situations, especially in situations where they've been tasked to embark upon a new role and to a certain, like, I mean, facilitating isn't new for him, but he was like the number one facilitator and scorer, and as you said, end all be all in the offense. But I think now with him coming in and basically leading, which the offense that will probably be the best offense of all time, in terms of rating and different things of that nature, different statistics.
Yeah.
I think that's a testament to him as a player and him in like his character. So, yeah. But I will agree with you. Getting into my up and down, I think that Joel Embiid can move up. Also, just because of the fact that we've not only seen a jump in his intensity, but a jump in his numbers. As you said, he's averaging in the 50s from the field, just about 40 from triple. He's playing a lot better. He's played outstanding. He's shooting 85% from the free throw line, which is much better than his previous averages thus far, at least. He's averaging over a steal and a block a game.
That's big.
He's playing out of his mind. He's in an MVP race that's extremely tight, as you said. And yes, I think that his game is climbing more than other players in this list. Like most players in the top 10 that we said are having pretty regular seasons in terms of what we know they can do. So Joel's, great increase, as well as I think the team around him finally fitting what he likes to do with shooting and the playmaking and the slashing and all that he has around him. Mm-hmm. He now has the unit that fits properly with Seth Curry, Danny Green, Ben Simmons, and Tobias Harris in that lineup that has been outstanding this season.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has the right unit. He has a better coach, a more experienced coach that can properly utilize him. So yeah, I think he has clearly the most growing that he can do, and he can definitely move. Like he has the highest chance to move up. And then for down, in an opposite note, Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think we've seen an ideal lineup for him. We've also seen that he's had a great coach already. He's won an MVP twice. I think last year, though, the NBA kind of gave him a storyline MVP and a storyline Defensive Player of the Year more so than him actually just outright taking it. Because I think LeBron outplayed him last year, and that showed further in the playoffs. Hate to break it to the league and Giannis fans, but I think Giannis Antetokounmpo not only is like carried a little bit by the narrative, I want to say, and also I think he's hit his peak because we constantly lament how broke his jump shot is, but he can't fix that. I just don't think he can fix his jump shot. I don't believe in him fixing his jump shot. And like his numbers are outstanding. Like he's averaging 20, 28, 11, and basically 6 assists, which is awesome. Those are great numbers. But he does it every year. We're kind of used to this now from Giannis.
Yeah, no doubt.
But he's not moving up. He's not doing anything else that we haven't seen. He's not expanding, and he's already had an ideal situation for him. And also in the playoffs too, as I said earlier, I consider the entire body of work. When he hits the playoffs, we've seen for the past few years now, in the playoffs when the whistle is utilized less, it's more chippy, more physical, it's more bumping, the lane gets tighter, and things of that nature. Giannis can be stopped or at least slowed down enough to be eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, until he gets a jump shot, a lot of things won't happen for him, although he's been carried by narrative
Yeah.
for so long.
Word.
Like go ahead.
My fault. I didn't mean to cut you off, but like you're saying, the jump shot thing is not happening. And then we seen like after 2019 when Toronto just threw out Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, Siakam, Kyle Lowry, and then Kawhi. Once they threw that lineup out, just matched up Giannis with every mobile big guy they could think of. Giannis was exposed, and then that same formula, exposed itself again when Miami dismantled them last year in the playoffs. So until it's either Giannis learns how to shoot or he learns how to make a move around these bigger players rather than just, as you would call it, the halfback dive to the basket.
Yeah, the halfback dive.
We talked about this another time, but like with that post, Giannis needs to learn how to force doubles in the post and kick out to his shooters, because without that, it's just teams are just zoning and baiting him into running into all the 7-footers they have, and he kicks out his shooters, and that's they're praying, but the shooters have to get the shot off quick because they're being zoned. So
right. And also, for me, the funny thing too about last year was I thought that Milwaukee was going to be able to get out of the East just because I felt like most teams could not replicate Toronto's formula from the previous year because no team had the same type of team that Toronto had. Like, I feel like that Toronto team was built perfectly to stop Giannis because they had Gasol, Siakam, and Ibaka, along with Kawhi Leonard, who I mentioned earlier is one of the best defenders in the world, if not the best. So I thought they had the perfect formula, but then you come out last year with a bunch of smaller guys like Iguodala, Crowder, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and still shut that down and still, as you said, dismantled them in a quick, 5 games?
Yeah, it's 5.
It's 5, gentlemen sweep. Yeah, so it was a completely different kind of team because Miami was much smaller versus a team that, versus another team that was much bigger.
Yeah.
So it's proven that he can be stopped against many different types of teams. It don't matter what you have. As long as you just clog up the lane, it's the same formula. So, yeah.
I just feel like Giannis, like of the players we have in our top 10, Giannis and Harden are the only two who've shown that they can be stopped at some point. Although I feel like the thing with Harden, though, is, he was the only point of attack, and he's not a 7-foot, cheetah on the court. So I just feel like that's interesting that Giannis has, he relies on these physical tools as he should, but once he runs into other players who can match those tools, he just has shown time and time again that it's a lot harder for him to be the great player that he is.
Yeah.
Harden's just like, he's 6'5", 200 something. He's a heavy player, but he's not the biggest. He's not the most agile. And then when he's the only one making these moves, of course he's going to get stopped at some point. So it's just very interesting. Please go ahead.
And with Harden's situation too, it's not about schematics for James Harden. It's more so he just gets overwhelmed by the other team because other teams beat Giannis in the Bucks schematically, where with James Harden, he just runs into a team that's, better than him. And also, I also think it's a mental thing a little bit with James Harden because he has shown from time to time that he is missing a clutch bone. I would go on a limb and say that he's missing a clutch bone. But with Giannis, he gets stopped schematically because of his skill set and because, I think he's not very clutch either, or he can't be very clutch because of his skill set.
Yeah, like you can't roll out Giannis to pull up a game-winning 3. That's not going to happen. It's 99% chance he misses it. So yeah, very interesting. Let's talk about some other players in the league. Like, there's plenty of players in the NBA who can be considered in the top 10. Like, there's a lot of great players. But who on the outside your list do you think has a shot of actually cracking the top 10?
So the player that I think personally can crack the top 10 list, I've given him a lot of crap, but Zion Williamson is the guy who I believe can crack the top 10 list. Not because of what he is now, but what I believe he can be. Zion Williamson is an athletic phenomenon, to say the least. And with his offensive ability already scoring in the ballpark of 25 a game, in fact, he is scoring exactly 25 a game right now. He's also shooting 37.5% from deep, which is excellent for his size and his position, averaging around 7 boards and 3 assists a game with a steal and almost a block a game as well. I think that he has so much room to grow. And of all the players that are in the top 10 right now, I don't think there's going to be much movement for a while. But I think that eventually when you move up, like when you move on in the next few years, I think Zion Williamson could be the next guy in this list, regardless of who you're dropping. Also considering the fact that he's only 20 and he's doing this stuff. I think he has a great chance. And I also think not just because of this stuff too, but I think when you talk about his current situation, I think when he started out, like he's a phenom, as I said. Mm-hmm. And in high school, he was looked at as such a great player. So many people were watching his YouTube highlights, his videos on Instagram, all different kinds of stuff. And the buzz generated into him landing in the Duke. And then at Duke, he was even more celebrated, obviously, because on the NCAA level, that's one of the most celebrated institutions in the world, NCAA basketball. And then he was the number 1 pick. And there's been so much buzz and hype around him that he's had to deal with that circus. And then you had the abnormal situation of not only being a phenomenon as an athlete and all this buzz around your name, but you deal with injuries, COVID. They've changed. The front office has been adjusting since he's gotten there. And then they have a new coach. They're changing players. There's just so many different situations. I think once he gets a steady situation as well, along with him getting older, since he's only 20 years old, I think that he is more than set to become a top 10 player just because of his athleticism and his game and natural game. Like, he's a natural basketball player. Like, he does things instinctually that most players can't do, not just with his athleticism. So, yeah. How about you, Zach?
All right, so for me, I'm going to go with another young player. I'm going to talk about Jason Tatum. Only 22 years old. He's become a very complete player since when he got drafted. Like, coming into the league, he was always a great shooter, natural scorer, great build, but he struggled immensely as a playmaker. And that was being exposed a lot when, especially when he started getting featured in the offense more. Teams would just double him, and then it just ended in like a terrible turnover a lot of times. But now he's gotten his playmaking up exponentially. He's averaging 4.7 assists per game and only 2.3 turnovers. And for someone who plays over 35 minutes a game, that's really good. That's like a 2-to-1 ratio, especially for a wing player. So that's very nice. He can do it all on offense, hit from anywhere on the court. Very smooth player. He's developed that nice turnaround J, which is crucial for any great wing in the NBA. Like LeBron, Kevin Durant, and Kawhi Leonard all have that. And Tatum's now added that to his arsenal, which I think is a big part of him, growing as a scorer. He's only averaging he's averaging 25.8 this season, but it's very feasible that he gets that number closer to 30, especially in the next couple of seasons. So, yeah, Tatum, he's grown a lot, and he still has a little bit more room to grow, I feel. Like, when he attacks the basket, he's like dodging contact a lot, which kind of limits his free throw attempts. which, as you know, most players most great players, they get a lot of points because they're attacking the basket, getting fouled, and just drawing contact. So I feel like that's something Tatum needs to get. But he's just become so great to watch, and his shot selection. Like I remember back when we had Kyrie on the Celtics, Tatum was just over dribbling a lot, taking a lot of nutty shots, just trying to get trying to do his thing. But he's cut down the over dribbling a lot. He's taking much better shots. He's, seeing, like I said earlier, seeing the court better. And I don't know, I'm just excited to see him develop. I really do think he has a shot at getting into the top 10. And in my personal opinion, he's already in the top 15, arguably, no doubt top 20. So, yeah, I'm just excited to see him grow as a player.
Very well said. And speaking of great small forwards, it feels like LeBron James has been on top of the mountain for quite some time now as number one. Who do you believe can be the next number one? And a follow-up question to that would be, can they be a long-standing number one?
The player on this list who I feel like has a shot at being the next number one, I have to go with Luka. 21 years old, so plenty of room for growth. He's already a walking triple-double. He's an entire offense unto himself. Like the Mavericks of last season had the greatest offensive rating of all time. And the team didn't have an army of offensive juggernauts. It was pretty much Luka, Porzingis, who wasn't there the whole time, and then Tim Hardaway Jr. Everyone else, you can argue that they're average or below average offensive players. So that just goes to show the kind of impact that Luka Doncic has already, that he can bring a team of otherwise average scorers to be the best offense of all time in terms of a number, granted. But Luka's his biggest weakness right now is his jump shot. He can hit tough shots, but his percentages are they're not good. He's below pedestrian, or below average, I should say. Definitely above pedestrian, but below average for the NBA in 3-point percentage. He had that nice step back three over the Clippers, so he's capable of hitting shots. I think he just needs to fix some little, make some minor tweaks, and then he should be able to hit at least 38% of his threes, which will help him immensely as a playmaker who's already under a lot of pressure. Like, he turns the ball over way too much. And that's, again, that's comes with the pressure he has as the sole point of offense for his team. But if he can get that jump shot right, teams will have to, respect it a little more than they do. And it'll just help him open the floor for himself even more. And yeah, his defense is another thing that I feel like he needs to clean up to try to move up on this list. Because I remember, those back-to-back Dallas Warriors games, the score was crazy because both those teams can't play defense. But I do remember watching Luka just getting torched by like Damian Lee, again, taking off the dribble by some random dude. And then the dude's like letting people call him a baby and stuff because he just is so porous on defense. But yeah, Luka definitely offensively, he has everything he needs besides getting a consistent jump shot, although that's definitely feasible for him. So yeah, I feel like he's the next number one. And long-standing, I do think he can do it for a while because, like I said, he's 21 years old. Give him a few years, he's going to climb up the list even more. And he doesn't rely on athleticism, so worrying about like a decline due to age and stuff is not really something you have to think about with Luka. So I think he can be number one for a long time. Granted, someone new comes in and tries to challenge his spot, but we'll see what the future has to come. And how about you, Jameer? What do you think?
I would have to agree. Luka Doncic right now is already on the top 10, and he's 21 years old. He's been competing against older players all his life, pretty much. Going back to his days when he was younger, he's used to this because of what he's done for so long now. This is the game of basketball is not new to him. He's just going up against the best in the world. And he's already proving that he can be the best in the world. He's, as you said, a walking offense, a walking triple-double. And he averages, 29, 8.6, and 9 per game, which is absurd in itself. And he's only 21 years old. He also has something that most players don't have, which is a clutch gene. I've mentioned like guys like James Harden, Giannis, and some other guys in tough situations, they break down. But he's proven that when you give him the ball in a crunch time situation, he's not going to fold, regardless of how much attention is on him defensively, regardless of how much pressure is on him in the moment, how many eyes are on him. Regardless of what happens, you give him the ball in a crunch time situation, he will step up, he will score, and no one one-on-one can deal with him. Like he's picking people apart. Like I've seen him. He's not the most athletic player in the world, but he'll get by. He can get by just about anybody he steps in front of.
Okay.
So, and he does it in his own way, which is crazy to see because he's not like shaking anybody. He's not running past people, but he just gets by every time. Mm-hmm. And also, you got guys like Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber, Willie Cauley-Stein, and no disrespect to them, but they're not offensive juggernauts, as you said. They're not guys who would be scary if I'm looking and I'm like, ooh, my team has to deal with those guys today. I'm not worried about that. But Luka Doncic weaponizes everybody. He makes everybody better than they are offensively because you have to put so much attention on him one-on-one. Mm-hmm. And he still gets his regardless. But also, when we talk about his weaknesses, his lack of athleticism, which I think kind of contributes to his lack of defense in a way. Also, I think just because he's young and still doesn't really understand a lot of things about the NBA, he doesn't know certain like tic-tac things that he could do to be a better defender because you have guys like James Harden and Steph Curry who aren't built the best either, but they still get like 2 steals or something like that, and they still can play a lot better on the defensive end. So I think, he averages a steal a game right now, so I think that number can jump. And also his efficiency, as you said, like he averages about 4 turnovers a game. He's only shooting like 33.5 from deep and things of that nature, and he's taking a lot of shots. But I think that comes down to his second best option, KP being out so much, so he has to take so many shots. He's constantly being double teamed and things of that nature. So I think when the situation around him gets better, like they finally get him some offensive help that's consistent. Also, with him just getting older and learning the game and the ins and outs and, certain referees call certain things, just experience that other players on this list have, because he's the youngest player on both of our lists as of now. When he reaches because most of these guys are in their 30s at this point or late 20s. So when he hits that age, I think he'll be a clear number 1 because he already has a clutch gene. He's already doing what they're doing, and he's one of the best playmakers and scorers in the world.
Yeah.
So, yeah, once he reaches that point of experience and stuff like that, I think he'll be clearly number 1.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the clutch gene thing, because me personally, I just hate that argument because it completely ignores the fact that numbers do exist. And like people will say that LeBron's not clutch, but as you all know, LeBron be doing what he got to do. So I just hate that argument, but nonetheless, that is still valid because you need to create that legend to be number 1. Like you need that legendary story and legendary shots. Like he started it with that, that step back 3 in the playoffs against the Clippers. Like that was the start of Luka becoming a legend. And as soon as he did that, everyone's like, all right, Luka for MVP next season. And it's not happening because his team is dog water, like they're trash. But, that clutch gene thing is definitely crucial. So I'm glad you mentioned it. But yeah, that's everything for today's episode of Game Time with Zach and Jameer. Again, I'm Zach, and my co-host here is Jameer. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at GameTime_podcast. on Twitter at GameTime_ZNJ, as well as Facebook at GameTime with ZNJ, and to stay up to date on further content. And to listen to future episodes, you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. We can't wait to talk more basketball on Game Time.